Okay. All right, well, we'll get this meeting started, folks. Now we have a quorum, so good afternoon, members of the public, members of the committee, all comers. This is the regular meeting of the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. Mr. Mejia, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Blumenfield.
Blumenfield present.
Ms. Hutt.
Here.
Mr. Nassarian, absent. Mr. Lee.
Here.
And Ms. Rahman. Here. For members on a quorum, sir.
Great. As folks who come to this committee know, we do public comment a little differently than other committees. We'll start by hearing folks who have signed up for 3 or more items, and we'll get the circus out of the way. And then we will, on each item, as we come up, as we address each item, we'll have a presentation, the applicant, the appellant, if appropriate, and then members of the public to speak to that item who have signed up for that item. So if you've signed up for 1 or 2 items, we will get to you as we get to that item. You don't need to speak at the beginning. And we'll go through the agenda one at a time, and we will do general public comment at the end of the meeting, after all the items have been taken up. So, City Clerk, would you please read the rules for public comment into the record?
Yes, sir. Appellants and other representatives and applicants and other representatives will be allowed to speak for a total of 3 minutes per side, unless otherwise noted by the chair. Members of the public wishing to speak on one agenda item only shall have an opportunity to speak for 1 minute. Appellants and applicants will be given an opportunity to speak when their item is called. Each appellant and applicant has a total of 3 minutes to speak. An appellant can choose to have a single representative speak on his or her behalf or divide the 3 minutes among his or her team. Anyone else, including an attorney or project manager, wishing to speak on an appellant's behalf who does not do so during this 3-minute period may offer a minute of public comment whenever the committee chairperson opens the public comment period for the item. Therefore, we expect that appellants and applicants have their respective teams assembled and ready to present at the appropriate times today. Members of the public wishing to speak on more than one item shall state that and shall be allowed to speak for a total of 2 minutes. Failure to submit public comment in a timely manner before the comment period for the item ends results in forfeiture of the opportunity to participate in public comment for the item. As stated by the chair, general public comment will be taken at the end of the meeting. Mr. City Attorney, please provide additional guidance on public comment.
Thank you. When speaking on the agenda items, you must be on topic. Our goal is to get through as many speakers as we can. If you're not speaking on topic, or if we cannot tell whether you are speaking on an agenda item, you will get 1 brief warning from the city attorney. If you do not immediately get clearly on topic, or if you stray off topic, you will forfeit the rest of your time, and we will move on to the next speaker. We will inform you when your time is up.
Great. Okay, before taking public comment for item 6, there are amendments to the conditions of approval that should be read into the record. Can the planning department please read their amendments into the record? Anybody?
Mr. Blumenfield, I have some amending language that is recommended by your office. I'm not sure if those are the same.
Those are different, but we can start with those while we're waiting for the others. That was going to be the next thing, which is I have some amendments that have been submitted to the council file. So while we're waiting for planning, Mr. Mejia, if you could read those amendments into the record.
Yes, sir. I will read those. As to the Bureau of Engineering, this is for item 6 again. As to the Bureau of Engineering conditions, I will read the language. Condition number 3, that along Corbin Avenue, adjoining the subdivision, a variable width strip of land be dedicated, aligning to a terminus to complete an asymmetrical cul-de-sac on an alignment. And this is the new language, which is underlined, consistent with the April 15th, 2025 conceptual cul-de-sac design, satisfactory to the Valley Engineering District Office, new language, underlined, the required asymmetrical cul-de-sac shall not require the removal of or impact any on-site or off-site protected trees. Condition number 13C, improve Corbin Avenue being dedicated and adjoining the subdivision by the construction of the following: a concrete, new language underline, and a concrete gutter, and this is also new language, underline, with sidewalk to be provided consistent with the April 15th, 2025 conceptual cul-de-sac design, and striking out language that originally inserted as to a 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk and landscape of the parkway. That is stricken out. Number 2, suitable surfacing to join the existing pavement and to complete a roadway cul-de-sac satisfactory to the Valley District Office. Number 3, any necessary removal and reconstruction of the existing improvements. Number 4, the necessary transitions to join the existing improvement. As to the Los Angeles Fire Department condition number 77.3, fire lanes, where required, and dead-ending streets shall terminate in a cul-de-sac or other approved turning area. No dead-ending street or fire lane shall be greater than 700 feet in length, or secondary access shall be required, new language, underline, as a gated emergency vehicle access to or from Corbin Avenue on the northern side of the subject property, unless an exception or suitable alternative is otherwise approved by the fire department. End of the new language. Urban forestry condition. Condition number 100A. Project shall preserve all healthy, mature street trees whenever possible. All feasible alternatives and project design should be considered and implemented to retain healthy, mature street trees. A permit is required for the removal of any street tree and shall be replaced at a ratio of 2:1, new language, underline, or an in lieu fee shall be paid if on-site replacement is not feasible, as approved by the Board of Public Works and Urban Forestry Division. As to Department of City Planning site-specific conditions, condition number 100.A, a certificate of occupancy, temporary or final, for the building's investing tract map number 83927 shall not be issued until the final map has been recorded. And this is a new language in its entirety, except that approval of this tract also constitutes approval of 3 model home uses, including a sales office and off-street parking, which may contain a certificate of occupancy or temporary certificate of occupancy prior to the recording of the final map. If models are constructed under this tract approval, the following conditions shall apply. 1, prior to the recordation of the final map, the subdividers shall submit a plot plan for approval by the Development Services Center of the Department of City Planning, showing the location of the model dwellings, sales office, and off-street parking. The sales office must be within one of the model home buildings. Number 2, all other conditions applying to model dwellings under Section 1222A, 10, and 11, and Section 17050 of the Municipal Code shall be fully complied with satisfactory to the Department of Building and Safety. End of the new language. Condition number 102.E. This is entirely new language. Lots 11 and 21 stricken out in referencing lots 1 to 10 will provide rear yard setbacks ranging from 67 feet to 75 feet. Condition 102.M, new language. As a project design feature, lots 22 and 23 shall be preserved as natural space consistent with Exhibit A. All existing structures on lots 22 and 23 will be demolished and removed. An approximately 1,778 square foot caretaker house, including the garage, shall be constructed on lot 22, and lots 22 and 23 will include the preservation of existing trees and landscaping, and the installation and maintenance of landscaping consistent with native vegetation, fruit trees, water infiltration. All healthy trees shall be retained, and 50 new native trees will be planted on the preserved parcels. And finally, condition 1.2N, new language. For lots 1 through 21, the project is approved to utilize the residential floor area bonus set in Municipal Code Section 12.07C5B, consistent with the vesting tract map 83927 and Exhibit A. That concludes the language, sir.
Great, and I've been informed actually that what you just read was actually a compilation of both my amendments and the planning department's amendments, which are, it's all now one document, and it's being circulated and has been circulated to
Duly noted, sir. And the
council
clerk has
members
a
and
copy.
public. Okay. Next, I believe we can move on to public comment. Is that right? Is there anything else we need to do before? Okay, so let's move to public comment. We'll start with anyone who is here to speak on, we have a number of people signed up. I don't know if they're here or not, but if you came to speak on 3 or more items, then line up at the left side of the chambers. House left, stage right. Lots of folks signed up with goofy names, but I don't see any of the usual suspects. So multiple comment time is closed. Great. Okay, so now we'll move on to, now item 1, we were going to have a report from General Manager Vince Bertoni, but with the budget just dropping, they have asked if we can postpone that, and which is fine, so that item will be continued, item 1. And we can move directly now to item number 2, if you would read that into the record.
Yes, sir. Item number 2, it's a report from the City Planning Commission relative to the Warner Center 2035 Specific Plan 5-Year Status Report for the period of December 25th, 2018 through December 25th, 2023, pursuant to Section 10.42 of the Warner Center 2035 Specific Plan.
Okay, and I guess we will do the presentation, and then we'll go into public comment, and then if there are any questions. But before we do the presentation, I just want to thank the planning department for all the hard work that's gone into making this Warner Center plan a success. I want to emphasize that the Warner Center specific plan saw the most growth in the entire city, according to the last census. Since the specific plan was adopted, we've seen thousands of units come online. As a direct result of the specific plan, it calls for density, unlimited height, and a development approval process that is the fastest in the city, bar none, and it is the most environmentally friendly specific plan in the city, bar none. That's how we've been able to get thousands of units constructed and occupied. It also includes 100% affordable projects. Not only that, but it's exciting because the Rams have made the Warner Center home, and a plan to build the regional entertainment center with residential, hotel, and office uses has been made public now, which is billions of dollars of investment. This is very important to me. It's when I first got elected in 2013, I worked really hard to get this over the finish line, knowing that it would have a major impact on the district and on the city. And we've been seeing the results, and we have this mandated every 5 years to get an update, which we're getting one now from you all today. But what we've seen is that the plan has worked, as predicted in so many ways, and the units have gone up in ways people say it's the easiest place to develop. We've seen more housing constructed. We've been able to focus the density and sort of create this downtown of the valley that is really just in progress now. But I don't want to steal all your thunder. I know you're coming here for the report, but I just, I'm excited about it. It's been a major priority for me in the district. So with that, we'll take it away.
Thank you, Chair Blumenfeld. Good afternoon, honorable council members. My name is Sheila Toney, and I supervise the Warner Center 2035 Specific Plan Work Program. Today, I will be presenting on the Warner Center's second 5-year status report. Next slide. Okay. The Warner Center plan covers an area of 1.5 square miles located in the Canoga Park, Winnetka, Woodland Hills, West Hills Community Plan. The Warner Center Plan is a transit-oriented district with a mix of land uses centered around transit. It is the West Valley's primary regional center, providing between 10 to 20% of the city's approved annual housing stock. It serves as an employment hub and provides a variety of entertainment and commercial uses. Every 5 years, the Warner Center Plan requires the city to prepare a report, which includes a summary of projects approved under the plan during the 5-year reporting period, cumulatively approved data, public input, information on transportation improvement and public improvements. Upon completion of this report, the Los Angeles City Planning Commission shall review it and shall recommend to City Councils any actions necessary to ensure the city's implementation of the plan does comply with its requirements and stated intents. On January 23, 2025, the City Planning Commission approved the second 5-year status report. Next slide. Here's a map of the plan, boundaries to the left of the screen. The plan consists of the following 8 districts: College, Commerce, Downtown, Park, River, Topanga, North Village, and Uptown. Next slide. As a transit-oriented development plan, pedestrian and vehicle circulation are integral to the plan, involving street activation and connectivity, such as the plan requires publicly accessible open space, which is open space that shall be open to the public on private development with unfettered access 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily. The plan also includes pedestrian pathways and new streets that allow for circulation through private development, connecting to public streets to help break up superblocks and provide ease of circulation for pedestrians, vehicles, and bicyclists. The plan also requires certain ground floor design elements to activate the streets and encourage pedestrian activity. Next slide, please. Here is a summary of developments since the adoption of the plan, which was back in December 2013. Since the adoption, there has been approximately 17,600 residential units approved, 22 million residential floor area approved, and 19 million non-residential floor area approved. Next slide, please. Here is a list of approved and proposed projects during the second 5-year status reporting period, with a map of their location to the left. There are 44 projects, with 42 approved and 2 projects under review. Next slide. There have been 15 projects that were approved and built to date since the birth of the Warner Center Plan, consisting of high-rise developments with mostly ground floor retail and several stories of residential units above. Of the 15 listed, one includes Warner Center's first Home Key project, providing housing for people currently experiencing homelessness. And that's number 2 on this slide. Next slide. It also includes the Westfield Topanga Shopping Center's 49,000 square foot, 3-story expansion along the Victory frontage. That's number 15 on this slide. And also Kaiser Permanente of Woodland Hills, 45,000 square foot expansion, and that's number 11 on this slide. Next slide, please. Currently, there are 6 significant projects under construction at various stages. This includes Warner Center first all-affordable housing development with 301 residential units, which is number 4 on this slide, and also our very own national football team, Rams private training facility, which is number 5 on this slide. Next slide. Lastly, at its January meeting, the CPC heard the status report and made the following finding and recommendation. It approved the Warner Center second 5-year status report for the year December 2018 through December 2023. And 2, it recommended to City Council any actions necessary to ensure that condition implementation of the plan. In short, the City Planning Commission agreed with staff that the plan is being implemented as originally instructed and adopted by City Council. Next slide. Thank you, and we're here to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thank you. Before we go to committee questions, we're going to open up public comment. If anyone is here who wishes to speak to this item, please line up on the right side of the chamber. Anybody? No? Okay, then we will close public comment on this item and we'll move to committee discussion. As I started this out, this is something I think has been tremendously successful. It's good that we're doing the 5-year review. What are some of the lessons learned that other areas can take from this, and specifically want to hear about how projects are able to be approved with one overall EIR for the entire area?
This is Claudia Rodriguez with Department of City Planning. One of the benefits of having a program EIR is that it gives projects coverage as it relates to an analysis that's already been prepared ahead of time of the potential impacts that could be in this area, which isn't very large. But it allows that coverage for them to take existing mitigation measures and expand beyond them for site-specific project needs. And so it gives that coverage to the developer and that guarantee that CEQA document cannot be appealed. And it also gives them the parameters to which they can build. And that's one of the great benefits of the Warner Center specific plan, is that it allows amongst the different districts, different types of typologies that can come in. And we've seen the benefits of it. It allows for flexibility as it relates to floor area and height and parking requirements. There's minimums and there's maximums. So it provides this building envelope without being so restricted to one specific number. It allows that range and that flexibility that takes into account any of the market needs for that area.
What about in terms of time for entitlements?
For timing, it's going faster than it was in the past under the supervision of our current city planner. Projects are moving quicker because we're able to, now that we've been implementing the plan, we know what works and doesn't work. So it does allow for staff and for the development community to really understand and know what the expectations are for projects.
Great. Colleagues, anyone want to ask any questions about this? I know it's my district, but I think it's a great model for the city. Councilwoman Rahman.
Yeah, just a question about approvals versus construction started. If we could just go back to that slide.
Was it this one?
I'm just curious about how many of the approved projects have actually moved forward to the construction phase, and what we can expect to see. Yeah, and congratulations to the planning department and to Mr. Blumenfield for bringing this forward. This is really exciting. I wish we had a big parcel in our district that would allow us to do this kind of planning. It is very exciting.
So this list here, it represents all the projects that came in within the 5-year status reporting period. So we have 15 that were constructed, and those are significant projects, but then we have also smaller projects which are shown on this list that were not illustrated on these slides. So 15 were constructed, and then we have 6 that are under construction at various stages.
So the total number of new units from the specific plan area is how much right now?
Approved or built?
Built.
I'll have that number in just a moment. Go back to the data, the spreadsheet that we have it on there.
Okay, we'll get that number for you. We shortened this presentation when we went to CPC, we had a much longer presentation, so we'll get that number for you right now.
And thank you, that was my only question.
Okay. Colleagues, any other questions? Nope. Okay. Well, then we can maybe get that answered afterwards. My recommendation is going to be that the council approve the Warner Center specific plan 5-year status report for the period of December 25th, 2018 through December 25th, 2023 pursuant to Section 1042 of the Warner Center Specific Plan, and ensures that the city's implementation of the plan complies with its requirements and stated intents as recommended in the Planning Commission report dated 2/6/25, which includes a detailed overview and responses. But especially, I'm also happy to bring Warner Center related issues and how it's all working as, you know, even outside of these 5-year windows to this group if we ever want to do that. And certainly when all of the things that the Rams are going to do, the Kroenke Group, all of that will come before us, as that's the next big aspect of this. So with that, we can, unless you have the answer to the question now, we'll,
I do.
Okay.
The number is just over 12,000 units
Great, in the last 5 years.
over the life of the plan. But that does not include what's under construction currently. So they have their CFO, the buildings are up, these units are already under construction. So that doesn't include the 6 projects that are currently under construction. So over 12,000 are built on the ground
Over 12,000 have been built over a period of how many years again?
since 2013.
Great, thank you.
okay. Let's call the roll.
Yes, Mr. Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
Ms. Hutt? Aye. Mr. Nassarian? Aye. Mr. Lee?
Aye.
And Ms. Rahman?
Yes,
That's 5 ayes and unanimous, Chair.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you all for the presentation. We'll now turn to item number 3.
Yes. Item 3, sir, contains a sustainable communities environmental assessment, mitigation measures, and mitigation monitoring program, and related findings. This is an appeal filed by Supporters Alliance of Environmental Responsibility. They're challenging the SKIA, the environmental clearance, the site plan review, the conditional use permit, and on-menu incentives. And this is to construct an 8-story mixed-use building, 170 units, and with a total of 34 affordable housing units.
Okay. So as we do, we're going to ask the planning department to present their report. After that, we'll have the appellant, Safer, to present. They'll have up to 3 minutes. The applicant will have up to 3 minutes. If Mr. Soto Martinez's office wishes to speak, they will have a minute then, or they will be able to speak. Then we will move to public comment, 1 minute per speaker, and then we'll move to committee discussion. So we'll start with the planning department, if you could present on this item.
Thank you. Good afternoon, honorable council members. My name is Stephanie Escobar, planning staff with LA City Planning. Item 3 for council file number 25-0209 is an appeal of the site plan review, main conditional use, and a density bonus on-menu incentive for averaging of FAR and parking for the demolition of 4 commercial buildings and 1 vacant duplex, and the construction of a new 201,134 square foot, 8-story mixed-use building consisting of 170 new residential units, with 26 units set aside for very low-income households and an additional 8 units set aside for low-income households. The proposed project, The proposed building includes 16,680 square feet of commercial space on the ground floor. Additionally, the project proposes to retain the existing 19-story tower located at the corner of Vine Street and Sunset Boulevard, and a 2-story commercial building, which is the Morgan Camera Shop building. The project would provide 284 parking spaces within 2 screened above-grade parking levels and 2 subterranean levels, as well as 24,997 square feet of open space. The project's environmental clearance is a Sustainable Communities Environmental Assessment, or SKIA. So the appeal today was filed by the Lozo Jury Law Firm on behalf of the Supporters Alliance for Environmental Responsibility, or SAFER. As detailed in the appeal summary and staff response dated April 17, 2025, provided to the council file, the appeal contends that the city improperly adopted the SKIA environmental clearance. However, city planning has reviewed the appeal and concludes that there is no merit to the appeal and that the SKIA is the adequate and proper environmental clearance for this project. The applicant's environmental consultant has also submitted additional justification documents to the council file dated April 17, 2025, which explains in greater detail why the appeal does not constitute any substantial evidence of any deficiencies in the SKIA. all of which are attached to the council file. As such, City Planning believes that this project is entirely compatible with the surrounding community, as well as the Hollywood Community Plan, and will be beneficial and provide much-needed housing for the community, including a total of 34 restricted affordable units, and concludes that there is no merit to the appeal and therefore recommends denial of the appeal before you. I'm available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll start with the appellant, Mr. Preciado. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Chase Preciado from the Zoe Jury LLP. I am speaking on behalf of Supporters Alliance for Environmental Responsibility, or SAFER. SAFER requests that the committee grant SAFER's appeal of the Planning Commission's approval of the Sustainable Communities Environmental Assessment, or SKIA, prepared for the Sunset Vine SV2 project. The committee should instead require the city to prepare an MND or EIR. First, the project is not eligible for a SKIA because it is inconsistent with the general plan. The project's floor area ratio, or FAR, exceeds the maximum FAR allowed for the site's zoning designations. Although the city granted the applicant a density bonus to increase the FAR, the city cannot still rely on the SKIA. The EIRs for the 2020 and 2024 Connect SoCal Sustainable Community Strategies, or SCSs, did not analyze projects of this density. Further CEQA review is required. Second, the project fails to implement all feasible mitigation measures set forth in the 2020 and 2024 SCSs, as required by the SKIA statute. Because the project has yet to implement all feasible mitigation measures, the project remains ineligible for a SKIA. Third, the city cannot rely on the SKIA because the project has unique and significant impacts on air quality and indoor air quality. Air quality experts Patrick Sutton and Dr. Yilin Tian from Baseline Environmental Consulting found that the project's construction would adversely affect air quality. The project's construction equipment would emit diesel particulate matter, or DPM, a known carcinogen, for the 30-month construction period. Baseline calculated that the project's construction DPM emissions would expose sensitive receptors immediately next to the project site to a cancer risk of 243.4 per million, exceeding the cancer risk threshold of 10 per million for the South Coast Air Quality Management District. Industrial hygienist Francis Offerman also found that the project will significantly affect indoor air quality. The project's long-term indoor emissions of formaldehyde gas, a known carcinogen, will expose its future occupants to a cancer risk of 120 per million for residents and 17.7 per million for commercial workers, exceeding a CEQA significance threshold of 10 per million. This is even assuming that all materials comply with the California Air Resources Board's formaldehyde airborne toxics control measure. The city did not address this impact. For the reasons I have discussed here and in SAFER's written comments, SAFER again requests that the committee grant its appeal and require the city to prepare an MND or EIR for the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we'll hear from the applicant, I believe Mr. Goldsmith. Welcome.
Good afternoon, honorable committee members. My name is Dale Goldsmith with the AGD Law Firm. Here with me today is Dave Powers of SRG Development, the applicant, and Stephanie Eyestone Jones of Eyestone Environmental. I'd like to start by commending staff in a very thorough presentation. As Stephanie mentioned, both staff and environmental experts Eyestone prepared very thorough written responses to the appeal. In addition, we in Eyestone thoroughly responded to SAFER's last-minute letter in a letter that we submitted to this committee today. These expert responses show that the appeal is without merit and should be denied. I'd like to respond briefly to the testimony you just heard from the appellant. SAFER argues that the project is inconsistent with the general plan and zoning because the floor area ratio exceeds the amount
Could you
permitted.
pull the mic a little closer to yourself?
It exceeds the amount permitted under the base density.
Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes. Yes.
Consistent with state density bonus law and the LAMC, the applicant sought and the CPC unanimously approved off-menu incentives to increase the FAR and to average it across the site. Therefore, the project is under state law, consistent with the general plan and the zoning. SAFER also asserts that the SKIA is inadequate and the city can't use it because the program EIRs for SCAGs, RTP-SCS did not specifically analyze the project's density. However, there is no such requirement. The SKIA demonstrates, as required, that the project is consistent with the RTP SCS. SAFER also claims that the SKIA needed to adopt verbatim all of the mitigation measures from those program EIRs. Again, there is no such requirement. Consistent with CEQA, the SKIA included all feasible and applicable mitigation measures. As all impacts are less than significant, no further mitigation is warranted. Finally, SAFER maintains that the project will result in significant unavoidable impacts due to diesel particulate matter during construction and formaldehyde from the building materials. SAFER bases these claims on two memos it submitted in its late letter yesterday. As set forth in iStone's expert responses submitted today, both memos rely on speculation, unrealistic assumptions, and flawed methodologies, and therefore substantially overstate potential impacts. Therefore, these memos are not credible evidence of a significant project impact. Therefore, we respectfully request that you uphold the Planning Commission's unanimous approval of the project and deny the appeal. Thank you for your consideration. I remain available for any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Mr. Herman, please don't disrupt this meeting. Okay, is there a representative from Mr. Soto Martinez's office here who wishes to speak? No? Okay, then we'll move to public comment. Anyone who wishes to speak to this item, who has signed up to this item, please go to the left side of the chamber. And for some of the folks who came in late, who are coming now, the time for multiple items has passed, so but you still are entitled to up to 2 minutes, meaning 1 minute per item. So on this item, you can speak for 1 minute, and on an additional item, you can speak for 1 minute. But that's it. Okay, so please enlighten us, Mr. Herman.
Mr. Attorney, can you repeat the number we're on?
You came up to speak on this number.
Well, I'm asking for reasonable accommodations, Bob. What fucking number are we on?
Sir, go ahead. This is item 3. That's why you stood up.
Thank you. Was that so hard? A full line of alcohol beverages? Is that so fucking hard, Nazarian? That's all we need is more fucking alcohol in this country.
Okay, you're not on this item.
This is item number 3. Sustainable environmental assessment for filings for the findings of a maintained conditional use permit for fucking alcohol. I'm on topic. Bob. So you see, LAMC section 16.05, a fucking site plan review, it's about alcohol. And we need to know what zones fall under that fucking alcohol, because the only way you run a fucking business is you gotta have alcohol. More alcohol, more drugs, more fentanyl, through the ports, through the airports, and all this fucking corruption that LA City mandates that I have to state my name for the record. Fuck you, the brown man.
Really enlightening. Thank you so much. Okay, next speaker. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. My name is Aaron Taxi. I'm here representing the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. I'm here to speak in strong support of the proposed project at Sunset and Vine. This project is an economic development slam dunk. It adds 170 units to our housing stock, including 8 low-income units and 26 very low-income units. And it also has a new enhanced pedestrian experience that adds restaurants and retail. Hollywood is in dire need of investments like this, and we have it right in front of us. Saris Regis has also taken other important elements into consideration, ranging from removing service level parking while maintaining adequate parking, preserving the historic aesthetic of the property, and considerations for traffic mitigation and sustainability. The Hollywood Chamber and our stakeholders strongly support this project, and we encourage you all to do the same. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. Are there any other speakers, anyone else here who wishes to speak to this item? Seeing no other speakers, public comment is closed. Colleagues, is there any committee discussion, questions, comments on this item? Seeing none, I'm going to recommend that we deny the appeal filed by the Supporters Alliance for Environmental Responsibility, SAFER, and thereby sustain the Planning Commission's determination to approve the environmental clearance, the Sustainable Communities Environmental Assessment, or SKIA, the site plan review, conditional use permit, and on-menu incentive for the construction of a new 8-story, 98 feet mixed-use building consisting of 170 new residential units with 26 units set aside for very low income and an additional 8 set aside for low-income households. The proposed building will contain 16,680 square feet of commercial space, 284 parking spaces for the properties located at 6266 through 6290 Sunset Boulevard, 1460 through 1480 Vine Street, 6251 through 6267 Leland Way, subject to conditions of approval and adoption of project findings as recommended by the Planning Department in its report dated 4/17/25 and attached to Council File 25-0209. CLA, if you would call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mr. Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
Ms. Hutt. Aye. Mr. Nassarian. Aye. Mr. Lee.
Aye.
Ms. Rahman. Yes. That's 5 ayes and unanimous, sir.
Great, thank you. That item is approved. Now we'll move to item 4. If you would read that into the record, please.
Yes. Item 4 contains a categorical exemption from CEQA, related findings, a report from the Planning Commission, and an appeal filed by Elaine Johnson, represented by Mr. Jamie T. Hall from the Channel Law Group. They're challenging the environmental clearance for the construction of a new 5-story, 19-unit residential dwelling building, 2 units set aside for extremely low-income households. Project situated in CD 10.
Okay, so we'll start again with the Planning Department to present, then the appellant, then the applicant, then public comment, and then committee discussion. So welcome.
Good afternoon. Heather Bleemers with the Department of City Planning. As mentioned, this is a CEQA appeal of a 19-unit TOC project, reserving 2 units set aside for extremely low-income housing. The appeal of the entitlements went before the City Planning Commission on January 23rd, 2025, where this appeal for the entitlements was denied. One appeal has been filed by an adjoining property owner who challenges the approval of the TOC project, including the reliance on a Class 32 infill categorical exemption as the environmental clearance. Specifically, the appellant takes issue with this Tier 3 TOC qualification, compliance with the underlying Q condition, and the project's eligibility for the Class 32. Please note a little information on the Class 32 infill exemption. This exemption is specifically intended for projects like this one, where they are located in a fully developed and predominantly multifamily neighborhood, having multifamily zoning intended for multifamily development such as this. So to reiterate, the Class 32 exemption is an appropriate CEQA clearance for this project and projects just like it, given that it meets all the criteria. In addition, the appellant contends that the bus lines used to determine the project's TOC tier do not qualify the project to utilize these Tier 3 incentives. The site does indeed meet the criteria to utilize the Tier 3 TOC incentives, given that the project is within 2,640 feet of a major transit stop, and approval of the Tier 3 project was appropriate. There is no issue with the application, as was further discussed in our appeal response report. Regarding the issue with the Q condition, the Q condition is part of the underlying zone. This does require that any development on the parcel be subject to specific regulations that are typically more restrictive than that zone. Through the TOC incentives, the project is allowed to request relief from zoning regulations, including any Q conditions. As such, requests to deviate from the Q conditions was approved appropriately and should not have any bearing on the CEQA clearance for the project. To conclude, the project has been conditioned and designed in accordance with all applicable provisions of the Municipal Code, TOC guidelines, and CEQA. Therefore, staff recommends that the committee determine that the project is exempt from CEQA pursuant to CEQA Guidelines Article 19, Section 15332, and that there is no substantial evidence demonstrating that an exception to a categorical exemption pursuant to CEQA Guidelines Section 15300.2 applies, and that the appeal be denied and the designee of the planning director's decision to approve the project be upheld. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Great, thank you. Next, we'll move to the appellant and then followed by the applicant, so you could line up. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Jamie Hall. I'm a land use and environmental attorney with Channel Law Group. I represent appellant Elaine Johnson. As staff indicated, this is a CEQA appeal. One of the criteria for a Class 32 categorical exemption is that the project be consistent with all applicable zoning regulations. I'd like to focus on the project's compliance with the applicable Q conditions, which are zoning regulations lawfully adopted by the city. The city adopted Q conditions for this neighborhood in 1992. This ordinance contains very specific open space requirements, not only the minimum amount of open space required for each residential unit, 100 square feet, but also the minimum widths, dimensions, etc. for common usable open space, as well as requirements for private open space. Now, the applicant is authorized to seek relief from open space requirements through a TOC application. That is a fact not in dispute. And here the applicant sought a 25% reduction in the total amount of open space required, from 1,900 square feet to 1,495 square feet. But the applicant did not seek to deviate from the other open space requirements set forth in the Q conditions. We commissioned an expert report from a licensed architect, which was attached to our appeal letter, which confirms that the project does not comply with the Q conditions, aka zoning regulations. The expert concluded as follows: none of the private open space located above the first habitable level qualifies as private open space under the Q conditions, which provides that only patios and yards located at ground level or the first habitable level may qualify as private open space. Number two, none of the private patios at ground level qualify as private open space under the Q conditions, which requires that patios shall be enclosed by a solid screen material at least 4 feet in height and measure at least 15 feet in width. One patio exceeds 15 feet in width, but it is located within the front yard and therefore cannot qualify as open space. Now, the applicant has proposed to install a wrought iron fence for the private patios, but this is not a, quote, solid screen material. And three, the expert opined that the Q conditions require that 50% of common open space shall be planted with ground cover, requiring at least 712.5 square feet of planted ground cover with a common open space. The project plans to pick 394 square feet in the rear yard. To provide the remaining required planted ground cover in the roof garden, 318 square feet would be required. The project plans do not calculate the ground cover on the roof garden, although it appears to be approximately 3 to 5 feet deep based on the scale of the drawings, providing a maximum of 150 square feet. So there are objective, measurable zoning standards. We have an expert who says this project does not comply with those standards. Staff apparently has conceded the issue that it doesn't comply and has added a so-called catch-all condition saying, oh, well, the project must comply with the ordinance. That's not the way it works. You have to determine based on the record before you today, does this project comply with the regulations? They do not. These are objective, measurable standards, and you're at high risk of losing this case in court.
Great, thank you. Is there a representative from the applicant here? Welcome.
Good afternoon, honorable council members. My name is Jackson McNeil. I'm a land use attorney from Elkins Cult representing the applicant. I first want to thank staff for their hard work on this project, which includes 19 housing units, including market rate and affordable units. Appellant argues, as you just heard, that the project is not eligible for a Class 32 exemption because it does not comply with the relevant zoning regulations. All of the appellant's arguments were considered and rejected by the Planning Commission in a 5-0 vote. All of these arguments have been considered and rejected and are rejected by staff, and I take each of them in turn. First, I want to briefly discuss major bus routes. Mr. Hall did not discuss that right now, but they did feature prominently in his appeal papers. When the project was approved, the city correctly determined that the project lies within 1,500 feet of the intersection of two major bus routes. Appellant now in their appeal papers argues that Next Gen Line 217, which replaces one of the previous bus routes, does not qualify as a major bus route. In support, appellant relies on the definition of major from dictionary.com. This argument, of course, makes no sense. Appellant doesn't cite a case or statute or regulation. In fact, all that CEQA requires is that a major bus route must have a frequency interval of 20 minutes or less, and appellant does not dispute that the Next Gen line in question has a frequency interval of 12 minutes. And it's also what is called a Tier 1 Next Gen line. And a 2021 city policy letter explained that Tier 1 is the highest quality next-gen line and it replaces rapid bus lines. And the planner reached out to Metro, who confirmed that the bus line in question is equivalent to or counts as a rapid bus line. Appellant just now focused largely on open space, so I want to address those arguments. Appellant in his papers argues that the open space that we have provided is deficient in a number of respects. For example, the 5th floor roof garden, according to appellant, is not allowed as open space. But in fact, the applicant is providing a 5th floor deck roof garden. It's not, I'm sorry, a deck garden. It's not on the roof at all. It's actually a deck on the same floor as units. Appellant argues that certain open space, including the rear yard open space, doesn't have the required dimensions, which you heard just now, but appellant conveniently excludes certain landscaped areas from their calculations, and when those areas are properly included, the dimension requirements for the open space areas meet the required, provide the required dimensions. And finally, appellant argues that there's not enough trees or not enough ground cover, but we believe that the required number of trees and ground cover is provided, and in any case, the project is conditioned to provide a new landscape plan, it's conditioned to comply with urban forestry requirements, it's conditioned to comply with the Q conditions, and so it will comply with those conditions before it receives a building permit or C of O. The project complies with the relevant zoning regulations, it qualifies for a Class 32 exemption. This body should reject the arguments that the Planning Commission already rejected 5-0. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll now take public comment. If any members of the public wish to speak to this item, please line up on the left side of the chamber. House left, stage right. And again, as you're coming up, Mr. Herman, a reminder that you get 2 minutes total, so if you speak here, this is the last time you get to speak on the items. You can still speak a minute in general public comment at the end after we've completed everything, but this will mercifully end your time on items. So,
Yeah, Bob, blob, blob. The hoax are filled on this crisis of HHH, $24 billion, and we're only building a 5-story, 19 fucking unit residential, low-income house with what? 1 room, 1 location, 11 bedrooms of 2, and goddamn 8 3-bedrooms. It's not enough to suffice the crisis of this fucking HHH. Bitch, 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 Bob. Blob. See, Bob, we don't need a fucking bicycle parking. We need fucking car parking. We're tired of having to fight for parking in Los Angeles, Bob. And the bus route, Bob. Gobble, 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 Bob, is that the Pope is going to hell. God hates you. Snyder versus Phelps. Fuck you on your project.
all right. Anybody else? No one wants to try to top that? Okay. Public comment on this item is closed, and we will move to committee discussion. Colleagues? Councilwoman Rahman.
Questions?
Yes.
When was the project first proposed?
This is Heather Bleemers with Planning. I'm just pulling that up.
Sorry,
It
your
has
mic
been
is
some
not
time.
on.
You just pull the mic toward your mouth.
My apologies, I'm just looking up the original approval date. It was in 2023, I believe.
It was approved in 2023?
Correct, by the Director of Planning. And then it was appealed to City Planning Commission.
And when was the appeal heard at the City Planning Commission? Sorry, what month in 2023?
I'm still trying to find the decision letter. My apologies. Let me just pull that up. My computer is deciding to be slow. It did go before the City Planning Commission on appeal January of this year.
Okay. It was approved in 2023, and when was it appealed?
Let me just pull this up. The decision letter was issued by the Planning Department on May 8th, 2024. My apologies. It was not in 2023.
So I'm just trying to understand the process. So it was approved they submitted the application for the building sometime in,
2023?
and then it was approved the same year?
It was approved in 2024, May of 2024.
It was approved by the planning director?
That's correct.
In May of 2024? Mm-hmm. I'm curious just about when it was submitted, when the building was submitted as well.
Let's see. Given that it was applied for with expedited processing, I believe we got a decision letter issued within 120 days of filing, but I am looking into that.
Okay. And then it was appealed in May of 2024, once it was approved?
That's correct.
And then the appeal was dismissed by the City Planning Commission in 2025, January of 2025?
That is correct.
And now we're going to be making a decision on this in April, end of April, and it still has to go through the full council?
That is correct. This is the CEQA appeal, the last item that can be appealed.
And is there an opportunity for further appeals to be submitted?
No, not at this time.
And can you just explain, I'm sorry, I know I knew this before, but what is a queue condition and how were those placed on particular properties?
Sure. This particular site had a queue imposed on it through a policy program. And it basically just says that this area is special in terms of what type of housing typology should be there. The multifamily housing is allowed, but there are regulations about open space and trees that can be provided and landscaping and what constitutes, these requirements. So it's just more specific.
And
than the
what was the policy program under which the queue condition was put in here?
Under the community plan.
The Hollywood Community Plan?
It is it's not in, this item is actually in Wilshire.
Wilshire Community Plan?
That's correct.
So the queue condition was placed on this area in, what year was that community plan passed?
Let me look that up.
And then I'm done after this question, sorry.
It was done through an ordinance, so let me just pull that ordinance up. I have it in my files.
It's just a good reminder of how long sometimes these things take. It's a good reminder of how long, what this process is and how long it takes.
While I'm looking for that, if you had another question, I'm happy to answer that.
No, I'm just looking at the timelines for moving housing forward in the city, and looks like the project was submitted in July of 2023, and by the time the entire appeals process will be completed for this, I think it will be 2 full years since that project has been submitted under a quote-unquote expedited appeal, process. It's just frustrating for me to see that it just takes so long for housing to be built during a time when we have an extraordinary housing crisis. And I don't know, thank you for this. I think your assessment of the appeals feels solid to me, listening to the appellant and listening to your report. But I am alarmed by how long it's taken to go through these stages. And, we'll reach out to the department and to other members on this committee who've served for longer than I have to understand how we can shorten some of these timelines so that we can get housing built and out the door more quickly. Thank you.
And just to add to that, I totally agree with you. And time is also money, and that these 2.5 years is a big cost burden, and that makes a lot of projects that might otherwise be affordable fall out because they're not affordable,
Right.
given the timeline. So it's it's both the timing and the reality that we're preventing good projects from coming forward because we're adding all this time/cost to all these projects. That being said, any other comments on this particular item? Then my recommendation is going to be to deny the appeal filed by Elaine Johnson, thereby sustain the Planning Commission's approval of the environmental clearance, a categorical exemption from CEQA, which determined that the project is exempt from CEQA pursuant to CEQA guidelines, Article 19, Section 15332, and there is no substantial evidence demonstrating that exception to a categorical exemption pursuant to CEQA guidelines, Section 15300.2 applies for the construction of a new 5-story 19-unit residential building for which 2 dwelling units will be reserved for extremely low-income households for the property located 1459 South High Point Street, as recommended by the Planning Department in its report dated 4/16/25 and attached to Council File 25-0292. With that, let's call the roll.
Yes, Mr. Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
Ms. Hutt? Aye. Mr. Nassarian?
Aye.
Mr. Lee?
Aye.
And Ms. Rahman?
Yes.
That's 5 ayes and unanimous.
Great, thank you so much. Now we'll turn to item number 5.
Yes,
Would you
item
please read
5,
it?
sir, is a categorical exemption. It's a report from the East LA Area Planning Commission and an appeal filed by Sarah Ramage from the Frontenac Avenue Safety Coalition. They're opposed to the adequacy of the categorical exemption. This is to construct a new 2-story single-family dwelling located in CD1.
Okay. Start with the Planning Department, then the appellant, then the applicant, then option for Hernandez's office, and then 1 minute for each public comment speaker. Go ahead. Welcome.
Good afternoon, honorable members. My name is Tim Fargo, and I am the Associate Zoning Administrator who acted on this case. The project includes the construction, use, and maintenance of a new single-family residence with a covered garage on a vacant sloped lot in the Mount Washington Glassell Park specific plan area. The project provides 3 off-street parking spaces. The subject lot is adjacent to Frontenac Avenue at the top of the slope and Avenue 44 at the bottom of the slope, with the dwelling having vehicular and pedestrian access from Avenue 44. The project is designed such that the residence has no access from Frontenac Avenue. The project was required to provide adjacent minimum roadway along Avenue 44 with the exception of the sidewalk, and was not required to provide adjacent minimum roadway along Frontenac Avenue due to the project having no direct street impact on Frontenac and due to the topographic features of the site. The project was also granted relief from the continuous paved roadway requirement to the boundary of the hillside, as is customary in hillside areas due to the infeasibility of acquiring property rights to complete roadway improvements. At its meeting of September 11th, 2024, the East LA Area Planning Commission granted an appeal in part and denied an appeal in part. Other than clarifying one condition and requiring compliance with the new tree report, the commission sustained the decision of the zoning administrator. I submitted to Plum a detailed report that explains how CEQA decisions and zoning administrator determinations have been made in hillside areas regarding relief from the LAMC street access provisions. Every project is analyzed, and for those that have been granted a categorical exemption, there is a written justification in which all potential exceptions to the categorical exemption are assessed. Also, generally, decision makers grant relief from adjacent minimum roadway improvements for streets that are not directly impacted by projects and from which the projects have no street access. Each case, of course, is unique, though. This case was issued a categorical exemption per CEQA Section 15303, Class 3, which includes the construction of limited numbers of new structures, including up to 3 single-family residences in urban areas. The appellant appealed the CEQA decision on the grounds that there are 3 exceptions that apply, including location, cumulative impact, and significant effect due to unusual circumstances. Regarding the first, the appellant alleges that the project's location causes significant impacts to the occupants of the proposed building as well as surrounding landowners. However, CEQA Section 15300.2 makes clear that what is to be considered is the impact of the project on the environment and not the impact of the environment on the inhabitants of the project. In the 2011 Second District Court of Appeal decision in Ballona Wetlands Trust versus City of Los Angeles, the court held that the environment's effects on a proposed project do not have to be analyzed under CEQA. I'd like to quote from this decision just for emphasis. This is a quote: "We believe that identifying the environmental effects of attracting development and people to an area is consistent with CEQA's legislative purpose and statutory requirements, but identifying the effects on the project and its users of locating the project in a particular environmental setting is neither consistent with CEQA's legislative purpose nor required by CEQA statutes." Thus, staff advises the committee to reject the appellant's claim that the location exception applies. In the second possible exception, the appellant alleges that there is cumulative impact on the roadway system that impairs emergency access because there have been other recently approved projects in the vicinity and because in the past, a legally parked vehicle on Avenue 44 prohibited an emergency vehicle from accessing a home where the resident Francisco Hernandez tragically died as a result of a house fire. This exception generally relates to past and foreseeable future development in an immediate area when considered as a whole. The subject project is undeveloped, has no past projects, and has no known closely related present or probable future projects. The projects would have vehicular and emergency access from Avenue 44. Condition 42E of the approval requires that the project complies with the off-street parking requirements. Plans show that the project will provide 3 off-street parking spaces. No substantial evidence has been submitted by the appellant to establish that the project will negatively impact street parking in the vicinity in such a way that impairs emergency access. The appellant also provided no substantial evidence that any of the other projects mentioned in the appeal application would negatively impact street parking in a way that impairs emergency access. Only one of these projects fronts partially on Frontenac Avenue. Upon review of all of the projects, each approval granted no exemption from off-street parking requirements, and each was conditioned to provide a minimum of 2 off-street parking spaces. The appellant also alleges that the projects collectively would have significant noise impacts and significantly worsen air pollution, but provided no substantial evidence to support those claims. Thus, no substantial evidence was submitted to establish that any of the projects mentioned, including the subject project, would cause inadequate emergency access or significantly worsen noise or air pollution as a result of those projects. As such, staff advises the committee to reject the appellant's claim that the cumulative impact exception applies. In the third possible exception, the appellant alleges that any lot that is in a hillside designated area and is in a very high fire hazard severity zone has unusual circumstances. In 2015, in Berkeley Hillside Preservation versus City of Berkeley, the California Supreme Court held that in determining whether the environmental effects of a project are unusual, local agencies have the discretion to consider the conditions in the vicinity of the project. It has not been the position of the city that any lot that is located in a hillside designated area and in a very high fire hazard severity zone is subject to the significant effect exception due to unusual circumstances based on those criteria alone. The city has regularly issued categorical exemptions in hillside designated areas in very high fire hazard severity zones. As such, staff advises the committee to reject the appellant's claim that the significant effect due to unusual circumstances exception applies. Excuse me. It should be noted that just as in how CEQA decisions are made, the LAMC tasks decision makers regarding street access not to consider the impact of the existing roadway system on the future inhabitants of the project or surrounding properties, but instead to consider the impact of the project on the roadway system and surrounding properties. The appellant has not demonstrated with substantial evidence that this project or other projects in the vicinity have such impacts. Additionally, the appellant mentions multiple concerns that are outside of the scope of a zoning administrator determination. A zoning administrator determination only grants a project relief from certain provisions of LAMC Section 1221C10(1). The determination does not exempt the project from any other provisions of the LAMC or any other regulations to which the project is subject. For example, the appellant claims that the project is not compliant with multiple sections of the fire code. Nevertheless, condition number 11 of the decision requires that the fire department review and approve the plans for compliance with the fire code. Thus, these arguments should be rejected. Finally, it should be noted that the improvement of the adjacent minimum roadway on Frontenac Avenue is expected to be required when the properties develop that have street access from Frontenac Avenue, which has been the customary practice in hillside areas. The appellant claims that if the minimum roadway is not provided now, that it will never be required for future applicants along Frontenac Avenue. This claim is not supported by substantial evidence, and in contrast, there are recent decisions described in the appeal report that demonstrate that a minimum 20-foot roadway is likely to be required when those properties develop that have street access from Frontenac Avenue. In conclusion, staff recommends that the Plum Committee recommend for the City Council to deny the appeal and to sustain the decision of the East LA Area Planning Commission to find that the project is categorically exempt pursuant to CEQA Guidelines Section 15303 Class 3, and that there is no substantial evidence demonstrating that any exceptions to the categorical exemption apply. Thank you for your time. I'm available for any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Next, we'll hear from the applicant and then the appellant. Welcome.
Hi, I believe I'm the applicant. Great. Hello, my name is Sarah Ramage, president of the Frontenac Avenue Safety Association. I reside at 497 West Avenue 44 and have lived here for 15 years. Today I stand before you representing my neighbors from West Avenue 44 and Frontenac, united in addressing the urgent issue of fire safety and the need to widen Frontenac Avenue so it can be accessed by fire truck. This project violates Fire Code 503.1.5 and 503.1.6 in state law enacted through the state minimum fire safe regulations, inadequate ingress and egress. Frontenac Avenue is a dirt road on a hillside only 9 feet wide, directly abutting the proposed property. This road and property are highly unusual as they sit at the corner that fire vehicles cannot access. Our community has experienced tragic incidents, most notably a fire that claimed the life of my neighbor, Frank Hernandez. The fire department's inability to reach the home due to Frontenac's narrowness and deterioration highlights the critical need for the street to be widened and improved to meet fire safety standards and city codes. Developers who are mandated by law to enhance streets through their projects provide our only real opportunity to improve Frontenac, since the city has refused to do so. Exemptions are granted in this case have jeopardized our safety and our lives and put our property at risk. Recent fires in Palisades and Altadena demonstrate the catastrophic consequences of inadequate infrastructure, even in areas of better streets and access. We cannot allow Mount Washington to suffer the same fate. The developers have assured us that their house will be built with the highest level of fire-resistant materials. And that's great, but that only protects them. Their neighbors' homes are gonna burn because Frontenac will remain too narrow for trucks to access. The significant and cumulative impacts of failing to widen and improve Frontenac are severe. The cumulative impact of this project is significant, as there are 18 pending projects in the area, and including one that has made changes and widened their roads. And the project is located in the very high fire severity hazard zone. And on red flag street days, all of our streets are cleared. This appeal is our last lifeline. It seeks an assessment that is critical to upgrading Frontenac and protecting our diverse community of mothers, children, seniors alike. Every resident deserves security, irrespective of age, class, and race, and it is our collective duty to protect our lives and property. Additionally, there are vacant lots on Frontenac, and this is the unusual circumstances. They will be developed, if this is granted, they will be developed and the required road improvements will not happen. I urge this committee to support this appeal, recognizing that the unusual circumstances and cumulative impacts to failing to widen Frontenac are necessary.
Thank you very much. Now that we've heard from the appellant, we will now ask the applicant to speak. The applicant will have up to 3 minutes. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Bert Yoon. My wife, Mi-young Kim, and I are hoping to build a home for our family in the Mount Washington area. And we've been working thoughtfully and closely with our architect and city staff to make sure the project meets all applicable requirements. It's our understanding that the city determined our project to be exempt from CEQA under section 15303, class 3, which applies to new single-family homes on residential lots. We gratefully respect the city's process and the role of both planning staff and the commission in reviewing these decisions. We want to emphasize that this project does not displace anyone and is not expected to cause environmental harm. The area surrounding the lot is already developed with homes, infrastructure, and hillside streets, and it has been designed to be sensitive to its surroundings. It was developed with wildfire hardening in mind under the Wildland Urban Interface Code, and it meets current zoning safety codes. Where exceptions were requested for street width and sidewalk, the city has already considered and approved those adjustments based on existing conditions in the neighborhood. As for the 10-foot front yard wall, we acknowledge that this was not approved, and we will of course move forward in compliance with that decision and many other things that we have to do to meet the requirements. This lot is not unusual, and our hope is that it can be viewed in the same way as other similar hillside parcels across the city. We do feel it would be concerning if a precedent were set that could prevent the proper use of this type of categorical exemption, which was created by the state and is used by cities like Los Angeles to support small-scale responsible development. But I believe that this appeal was submitted due to safety concerns of the neighborhood, and I want to acknowledge that I share many of those concerns as also a resident who lives in the area, especially around wildfire risks. Living in this area comes with real challenges, and I don't believe any one homeowner should carry the full burden of solving those issues alone. I do hope this appeal process helps bring greater attention to the voices of those living in high-risk areas like this. But at the same time, we've done everything we can to meet the city's current wildfire safety standards, and I respectfully ask for permission to move forward with our project. Thank you so very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Next, if there is a representative from Councilwoman Hernandez's office here, please come forward. Welcome.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Helen Campbell. I'm the planning director for Councilmember Hernandez's office. Our office has been working with the local community, the appellant, and the owner-developer of the project, /developer of the project for the past 2 months to develop solutions for the issue at hand. So before then, our office wrote letters in support of the appellant to make a case to the ZA and to the East APC to not allow the developer to waive out of improving adjacent street infrastructure on both Avenue 44 and Frontenac. So in order to prepare for the Plum hearing, we hosted a meeting at our field office in March so that all parties could listen to each other's concerns. And as a result of that meeting, what was clear was that this community is in need of comprehensive infrastructure improvements and improved services to better protect itself from climate change-induced disasters, especially from fire. So this area is located in a very high fire hazard severity zone, which contains many hillsides and canyons with crumbling streets. And in 2014, there was the fire-related death of senior citizen and veteran Frank Hernandez, which you heard about. And so our office worked with BOE to produce a rough cost estimate for developing the entire stretch of Frontenac from Avenue 44 to Canyon Vista Drive. We have a rough $3.4 million estimate. We also began conversations with the CAO's office to better understand the development of a special tax assessment district to potentially implement some of those community-identified infrastructure improvements. So we hope that the city, given the budget crisis, can continue to fund the purchase of smaller fire and ambulance vehicles that can reach communities who live along these narrow streets in very high fire hazard severity zones like Mount Washington. So while we do not support the CEQA Class 3 categorical exemption appeal, we are committed to continuing to work with the community to figure out a solution and address their health and safety needs.
Thank you very much. Mr. Herman, we know you're just trying to disrupt. Please do not clap. Okay, members of the public who wish to speak on this item who have not spoken already for over 2 minutes, please come forward, line up on the left side of the chambers if you wish to speak to this item. And we'll, each person will get 1 minute. And who's ever on deck can come take a seat closer by. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you and good afternoon. My name is Mark Kenyon. I live at 505 West Avenue 44, directly across the proposed project. I've lived there for over 45 years and can speak to cumulative impacts, unusual circumstances, and the location. What staff has failed to tell you today is that the lot in question is downslope, is a through lot between 44 and Frontenac. All the other downslope lots are exactly the same. They will take their access from Avenue 44. All the upslope lots take their access from the street just above that on Canyon Vista. If you do not require the widening of Frontenac by this project, you will set a precedent that no one will widen Frontenac. The proposed project, my property, and over 20 other homes have no secondary access. The fire department used to be able to get up our street in the 90s and the 2000s. Since 2014, there have been at least 3 fires, including the one in 2014, where my neighbor, Frank Hernandez, a World War II hero, lost his life because the city of Los Angeles could not access his property because the fire trucks couldn't get past a legally parked truck. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Chris Gross. I live on Avenue 44, not far from Frontenac. I just wanted to note the unusual circumstances in particular and the cumulative impact. So this is Frontenac. It's a 10-foot road. This was not indicated in the ZA's thing. Notes, there's a fire on this property and on adjacent Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy land just a couple of years ago. The fire truck could only get halfway down Frontenac. If this particular property is expanded to 20 feet, this fire truck could have gotten all the way down Frontenac to Avenue 44. So this is an unusual property and has cumulative impacts on the whole area because of that. The neighboring property is vacant. It's Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy. We are working with the builder. We've been meeting with the builder, and we're going to talk to the Conservancy, and we'd like to continue that discussion. But if the Conservancy land and his land is expanded, that would provide fire access. That's it. It's not a massive, the fire due to walking down this property that is under consideration. If there's a house there, you wouldn't be able to walk down the property. So I would say, given the fire, consider this cumulative impact.
Thank you, sir.
And consider the extenuating circumstances. And if you do deny our appeal, I hope you make it a condition that you do make the roads better and have us all work together.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, Ali Jivanji, 509 West Avenue 44. While we do share the owner's concerns and vision to build a home there, and we agree with those intents, I think he claims to understand, to share our concerns, and I think we have all made clear our concern is Frontenac Avenue. The emergency vehicle access is a problem. In 5 years, we will not have trash service on our street, because there is no way for a garbage truck to go up and go around once Frontenac disintegrates any further. So, we did not file this appeal for the purpose of denying the owner's wish to build a home there. We just insist that he develop Frontenac Avenue as the city requires. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Jamie Hall, I don't represent anyone here, but I felt the need to come up and speak about the state minimum fire safe regulations. Those were made applicable to incorporated areas in the very high fire hazard severity zone on July 1st, 2021. This project does not comply with the state minimum fire safe regulations. That roadway is not 20 feet. I have continued to come to this committee and talk about this. I talked about it at another committee a couple of weeks ago on Sandell Rain. The city cannot ignore this. You cannot put your head in the sand. You're going to be held accountable. Projects must be compliant with the state minimum fire safe regulations. And I did a little bit more research. Did you know that you actually adopted the state minimum fire safe regulations? That is at LAMC 4908.1. You adopted it verbatim. So this project is not compliant not only with the regulations themselves, but the Los Angeles Municipal Code. Don't ignore this. We're going to keep raising this issue, and we're going to hold you accountable.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak to this item? Seeing no one else lined up, public comment on this is closed. We'll move to committee discussion, and I'll start by asking if you would address the sort of the last question that was asked that gets asked often about the fire safety regulations on the width of the street.
Hi, Tim Fargo for the record. I just want to make clear that in the decision before you, the case is conditioned to comply with...
Could you pull the mic down toward your mouth a little bit?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just want to make clear that, again, the way that this is, this decision is made, the project is required to comply with all regulations. So the decision before you, is related to the adjacent minimum roadway and those aspects, but within the determination letter itself, the project is required to comply with all fire code and other applicable regulations. So that's in the decision that is in the decision, and I can't really speak to more than that, I guess.
So what does that mean vis-a-vis the road itself? Does it need to be expanded, or it's okay as is?
Well, I can't speak to that aspect of it, so I don't know if the city attorney would like to weigh in on that.
Okay, well, I don't know if, while we're waiting for that, Mr. Herman, would you sit down? You're disrupting the meeting. You're disrupting the meeting with all of, okay. If you continue to speak, you will actually be kicked out, or you can leave voluntarily, or you can be removed. Your choice. Okay. Colleagues, any additional comments or questions? No? Okay. Any additional comments from city attorney or staff? Okay, then at this point we will recommend denying the appeal filed by Sarah Ramage and thereby sustain the determination of the East Los Angeles Area Planning Commission relative to the approval of the environmental clearance, the categorical exemption from CEQA for construction of a new two-story single-family dwelling measuring approximately 3,731 square feet with a 393 square foot coverage garage on an 8,696 square foot vacant lot located at 504 West Avenue 44, Los Angeles, as recommended by the Planning Department in its report dated 4/8/25, and thereby find that the project is categorically exempt from CEQA Guidelines Section 15303, Class 3, and that there is no substantial evidence demonstrating that any exceptions to the categorical exemption apply. We could call a roll.
Yes, Mr. Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
Ms. Hutt.
Aye.
Mr. Nassarian.
Aye.
Mr. Lee.
Aye.
Ms. Rahman. 5 ayes and unanimous.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Now let's move to item 6.
Item 6, Councilman, is a report from the Planning Commission and an appeal filed by the West Valley Alliance for Optimal Living. Mr. Jamie T. Hall is the representative, and they're challenging the approval of a vesting tract map. The tract map is for the merger and re-subdivision of 4 parcels into 23 ground lots for the construction of 21 two-story single-family homes and 1 caretaker residence. The project is located in CD3.
Okay. And again, we'll start with the Planning Department, then the appellant, then the applicant, then the public.
Thank you. Good afternoon, honorable council members. I'm Stephanie Escobar, planning staff with LA City Planning. Item 6 for Council File 25-0310 is an appeal of the City Planning Commission's decision to deny the first level appeal filed for the proposed project located at 5300 Oakdale Avenue in the Encino Tarzana Community Plan area. The proposed project involves a vesting tentative tract map for the merger and re-subdivision of 4 parcels into 23 ground lots for the construction of 21 two-story single-family residences, 1 caretaker's unit, front yard and side yard reductions, and 3 model home lots. The appeal today was filed by Jamie T. Hall from Channel Law Group, LLP, on behalf of the West Valley Alliance for Optimal Living. The appellant made several claims which were summarized and responded to by planning staff in the appeal summary and appeal response submitted to the council file on April 16, 2025. The appellant did not present sufficient evidence to support their claim that the project was wrongfully approved. Additionally, planning staff would like to provide further clarification on the submitted modified findings and modified conditions of approval submitted to the council file. The modified findings revise the CEQA language to the Department of City Planning's most up-to-date CEQA clearance language used for projects utilizing the Housing Element Program EIR streamlining checklist, as well as revised tree removal language to clarify that 4 unprotected trees will be removed from Oakdale Avenue. This information is provided in the project's environmental reports. Furthermore, the conditions of approval that are modified and/or deleted and shown to be struck through include condition numbers 62 through 68 and portions of conditions number 69 and 71, which were all conditions requested to be modified in the previously publicly shared vesting tentative tract map staff recommendation report, which was presented and heard at the August 21st, 2024 Deputy Advisory Agency hearing, where the DAA approved the staff recommendations, including the modified conditions. Furthermore, I would also like to read into the record that the subject vesting tentative tract map number is 83927. As such, planning staff recommends that the Plum Committee recommend for City Council action to deny the submitted appeal of tract map VTT-83927-HCA-1A and sustain the City Planning Commission's determination that determined in the independent judgment of the decision maker pursuant to CEQA Guidelines Section 15168C, based on the whole of the administrative record, including the housing element checklist and all its appendices, prepared for the proposed project, the proposed housing project is within the scope of the program approved with the 2021 through 2029 housing element, for which the 2021 through 2029 housing element environmental impact report number ENV 2020-6762-EIR, state clearinghouse number 2021010130 EIR, certified on November 24, 2021, and addendum number ENV 2020-6762 EIR-ADD1, adopted on June 14, 2022, and the addendum number ENV 2020-6762 EIR-ADD2, adopted on December 10, 2024. The proposed housing development project was adequately described in the EIR, and the impacts of the proposed housing project are within the scope of the EIR and the addendum, and adopt the Mitigation Monitoring Program, MMP, for the proposed housing project, as well as adopt the modified conditions of approval and adopt the modified findings. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. So we'll start now with the appellant. If you come forward, we'll be followed by the applicant if you want to get ready.
Good afternoon again, Jamie Hall with Channel Law Group. I'm here representing appellant West Valley Alliance for Optimal Living. The project before you proposes to eliminate one of the last orange groves, if not the last orange grove in the San Fernando Valley, to make way for 21 luxury homes. Before destroying one of the last vestiges of the valley's agricultural history, the city should, at a minimum, do an adequate environmental review as required by CEQA and the Subdivision Map Act. The first issue I want to address is the environmental clearance document that the city is seeking to use for the project. Rather than doing an EIR, M&D, or even deeming the project categorically exempt from CEQA, the city is seeking to use the housing element EIR as the environmental clearance document for this project. However, this project is not within the scope of the housing element EIR. In fact, the housing element EIR provided no site-specific analysis of the unique environmental impacts of this project. The project site is not even included in the housing element inventory of adequate sites, and is not a site identified to be rezoned to allow residential uses or to allow multifamily residential uses at a greater density in the candidate of sites for rezoning. The city is putting itself at huge legal jeopardy by rolling the dice here and trying to use an EIR for a general plan element, which only conducted environmental analysis on a broad citywide basis. Today, we submitted expert reports outlining the project's impacts on biological and historical resources, as well as noise. These experts confirmed that the housing element EIR did not analyze the site-specific impacts of this project. The second issue I want to address is the findings for the vesting tentative tract. Again, the findings are fatally flawed because the city failed to undertake the required environmental analysis that would support these findings. I would note Topanga Association for a Scenic Community versus County of Los Angeles, a 1989 case that held that the environmental review required by the Subdivision Map Act is separate and distinct from that required from CEQA, and the city has done none here. The third issue I want to address is the project's compliance with the state minimum fire safe regulations, which you've already heard me talk about. We were able to demonstrate objectively that the project approved by the advisory agency was not consistent with these regulations because it proposed the construction of a new dead-end road that was over 800 feet long. Yesterday, the applicant submitted a revised map indicating that they planned on constructing a secondary gated emergency access road. I take this as a clear concession that the project did not meet these standards. We are still evaluating the revised plan, but our initial conclusion is that the proposed construction of this secondary access road does not resolve the compliance problems with the state regulations. And we reserve the right to submit additional documents before the city council hearing at 10 a.m. on Friday. And I just want to point your attention to the fact is, how was it that the advisory agency even approved this if it was non-compliant with the state minimum fire safe regulations? What kind of training does the Department of City Planning have, or any other departments? Are they even aware that the regulations exist? Does it take someone hiring an attorney like me to point this out before projects are revised to provide secondary access? Please look into this.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll hear from the applicant.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Elisa Pastor from Rand Pastor Nelson. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. First of all, thank you to staff for their tireless work on this case. This has been a long time coming, and we appreciate everything they have done. This is a 21-unit project. It's got 19 ADUs. This project is also going to be setting aside more than 4 acres of land that is going to be dedicated to a public agency as a public benefit for public access. These single-family homes are exactly the types of homes that we need after the fire, especially after the loss of so many single-family homes. The appellant today is the same person who tried to get this site designated as a historic cultural monument based on very, very flawed evidence. This council voted down the historic nomination because it was flawed. They are now trying to bring some of those issues again, mentioning this orchard. The orchard has not been in production for many, many, many years. There is no money for it. It's on municipal water, and it is prohibitively expensive. This project is a great compromise project. This project, like I said, is a single-family home project. You could have built probably more than 50 units here, but in fact, this project is a compromise that is supported by the neighborhood. 2 neighborhood councils unanimously voted to support this project. The appellant's points are very much without merit. First of all, the housing element EIR, as actually explained by staff as it related to the Warner Center, the program EIR was designed exactly for this, for other projects to tier off of it, so as not to go through an EIR process and to expedite housing development, as Councilmember Rahman has already noted that we very much need to do. Their arguments are without merit, and they're based on blatant misrepresentations. A project does not have to be listed in the suitable sites inventory to be analyzed. There is an extensive housing element checklist, and we have submitted additional extensive technical reports and other evidence that show, based on substantial evidence, that this project was covered by the housing element EIR. I'd like to address this point about the fire road. So in fact, it is not true at all that the advisory agency approved this in violation of the fire regulations. In fact, there is a specific regulation that said if the road is longer than a certain distance, you will need to provide a secondary access. So the project was already conditioned on meeting the fire regulations, which shall we call them. So there was no error. What the applicant has done is actually just depict exactly how that will be done, so there is more information in the public record. We respectfully request that you reject this appeal and that you allow this project to move forward. Thank you. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the project.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now hear from members of the public. Is there anyone who has come out from a member of the public who wishes to speak to this item? If so, feel free to line up on the left side of the chamber. Seeing no speakers, that public comment is closed on this. So I'll get us started on this item. I want to thank planning for your presentations. Colleagues, if you don't know the history of this site, this is something I've been involved with for a very long time. One of the things that the appellant mentioned, which I think is valid, which is that this is an important site. It is the site of the last commercial orange grove in the entire city, the Bothwell Ranch. It was established in the 1920s. The Bothwell family sold oranges for decades until recently, when maintaining the trees was just not feasible. Years ago, when the land went on the market, I worked really hard to preserve this site, to try to save all of the orange trees, even looking into historical preservation, all of those things. But we faced the reality of the high cost of saving and maintaining the orange grove, and the land was sold to a private developer. We worked with some nonprofit groups who tried to raise money to buy the site. That didn't happen. We worked with the state. That didn't happen. We were potentially going to lose all of it. They could have easily turned off the water, and it would have all been lost. But we worked closely with the developer and with a group that I worked with for many years prior to being in elected office, the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, and we were able to put together a really good deal where they donated 1/3 of the property to the Conservancy to be preserved forever, to be able to make a public access place, to have a place where a ranger could be on site at all times, a ranger, by the way, that's trained in fire safety, and be able to preserve the oranges in a way, the orange trees in the grove, to an extent that the public can finally enjoy it. Yes, part of the property will be developed, the other 2/3 of the property, but it's going to be developed in a way that's very consistent with the rest of the community. And it's something we've worked with the community on. The community has been all for it, especially with this donation. And so I think this is a great project. And I'm going to urge that we support the Planning Department's recommendation, but I want to open it up to comments or questions from my colleagues. Any comments or questions? No? Okay. Well, then I'm going to ask that we support the Planning Department's recommendation to deny the appeal and adopt the amended conditions of approval. I will not reread those conditions because now they have been read, I believe, twice. So they are definitely firmly in the record, and we can move to a vote.
Yes,
Please call the roll.
And also, Councilman, the Planning Department read the environmental findings and language when they made their presentation. So that has been satisfied. And also, there was a correction to the track map. There was a typo on the agenda. The correct track map number is 83927. The agenda noted 83297. So if the clerk can make that notation when she prepares the report to the council.
Okay.
I will read the I'll call the roll, sir. Mr. Blumenfield,
Blumenfield, aye.
Ms. Hutt. Aye. Mr. Nassarian. Aye. Mr. Lee.
Aye.
And Ms. Rahman. That's 5 ayes and unanimous.
Great, thank you. All right. Is there anything else on the desk?
No, sir, that concludes the meeting.
That clears the desk, wonderful. We'll now move to general public comment. Is anyone here who wishes to speak for general public comment? 1 minute. Shocking. Then general public comment is closed, and the desk is clear, so
It is.
this meeting is adjourned.